Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm here with a talk through of my photography video as an alternative to a vlog, because in my weekly vlog loads of you guys said that this is something you would be interested in, as I'm currently doing my A2 photography, which is actually ending on Wednesday. I've got my exam Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week, and then I will be completely done with this. So yeah, I'm behind the camera. I'm going to try and do this in one take because, to be honest, I'm not feeling too well right now, so I'm just going to try and upload this like straight away so that you guys can watch it without loads of cuts, and also there isn't that much to say, so I'm just gonna get right on with it. So the project that I chose was transformations. I sit this exam on the AQA exam board, so we were given a list of different titles. There were ones such as transformation, sensory experience, land use, and if you want a bit more information I will link the exam specification, the actual one I'm sitting, down below. And I picked transformations, and when I started out, this was the first project I'd ever picked where I didn't really know where it was heading. To be honest, with this whole project, I kind of just feel like I've run out of my creative ideas, and if you watched my last one of this kind of thing, so my coursework for A2, I feel like that was so much stronger, but that is just my personal opinion. And at the moment this is at a B/A standard, but I have not done my final piece yet, so that could go up or down. I'm aiming for an A, but I think that is a bit ambitious because creative subjects are very difficult to get into the top band. So this was my mood board, this is my first page, and I just did loads of different pictures on types of transformations. And I kind of knew that I wanted to start out with like the transformations within the landscape, so I've got quite a lot of like city pictures here, and how city and like skylines have changed over time. So with that in mind, I then focused on this photographer, which is, I don't know if you can see that, Christopher Maloney, and he works with famous locations in, well, he focuses on New York City, but there are lots of artists and photographers that do this, and he focuses on like famous clips out of films, and then he holds the film clip up to where it was filmed and then retakes the photo. So with that in mind, I then used my own New York pictures from when I went to America in October, and I just have two sheets here of pictures that I have taken when I was in New York, focusing specifically on the skyline, and then I've just written a bit about them. I say a bit, when you see all this writing, guys, it's basically just waffle about each picture. Like, we have to do writing and annotations, but it's so difficult to write about an image because the image says it all anyway, so it is quite difficult to write about. But this was my first page, and then my second page was original photography, because obviously transformations was what I was focusing on. So I used some images from when my mum and dad had been to New York in 1998, and they had taken the pictures on a film camera. So I scanned each image in and then I compared them to my own. So these are my favourite images of my own here, so these four, and then these are my favourite images that my parents took, so these two here. This one on the skyline and this one of Times Square. And then I used this idea to layer them up. So obviously I took images of the skyline as it is now, and obviously the Twin Towers are no longer there. And then I layered the images that my parents had taken over the top, just to show the style of Christopher Maloney, the way it's layered, very, very basic, but also the transformation within the landscape, because as a literal and like edited version, that is an obvious difference within like the New York skyline. So that is kind of what I've written about here. I trialed it in black and white. I also trialed it here with the like actual outline rather than the box. I really didn't like that, and I wrote about it there. So yeah, it was just an example. Then I did a couple of other ones. I experimented with the composition, so changing the rule of thirds as to like whereabouts within the image the skyline and the horizon line were. Again, very basic images. These are something that I probably could have done before I even started the course. These are not my strongest work at all, but I do like the message that they represent. And then I did the same kind of thing with the Times Square photography up here. I did the old pictures of Times Square that my parents took versus the very colourful modern day ones, and just to contrast it, I did it in black and white and in colour, and I oversaturated my own images just to emphasise the fact that that is current day, and to try and get across the transformation within the city. So once that was done, I then moved on to my next artist, and I chose Victoria Seamer. Now, her work was only really loosely linked to what I did, but I actually really like this photographer. I think her work is amazing, and I had actually seen it before on Instagram and Tumblr, and her inspiration came with my Amsterdam photography. So as you can see, there was a bit of a travel theme going on here, and I didn't have as many images, but these were mainly of the houses and the canals that I saw and visited when I went to Amsterdam in February. So then these are the most successful images from my shoot in Amsterdam. They are quite random, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't take these photos with my project in mind, so I kind of like shoehorned it to fit rather than took the images deliberately. However, I don't think it was unsuccessful, and the edits I did again were quite similar, but I actually layered them on Photoshop with my New York image and like flipped it so that the reflection of the water here was actually the New York skyline, so it shows a transformation between an old kind of like European city skyline versus a very modern built up American skyline. And again, this was just quite a generic shot. This isn't very like personal or linked to me. However, I do think that it worked really nicely. And I think this here is my favourite page actually. So then I tried some edits in the style of Victoria Steamer. So I cut out some of the image, I flipped it the other way, I tried different filters, tried different things. So obviously this here is the actual, this is the New York skyline in the middle of the Amsterdam skyline. These are the centre of the image but in like reverse kind of thing. But I think this is my favourite edit because this is the New York skyline and the Amsterdam skyline combined as one, flipped upside down, and then it's almost like a poster the way that the sky sits. I really like this, and again it shows the difference between the two cities. Then this page is not fully finished. I have an image to stick here, but I did actually then change between a kind of like general very basic project to something that was a lot more personal to me. So I decided to look at my mum's life and her upbringings and the transformations within her life and then my own life because of that. So I picked Hopper to work on as an artist next, and he actually is an artist rather than a photographer, but I looked at his work because he does kind of like cafe photography, not photography, sorry, artwork of people sat in cafes and the reflection of glass, and that is something I really like. So with that in mind, I then went to Scarborough. You guys might have seen the vlog, and I took pictures of my friends in a cafe in Scarborough, and I used these because the place we went to eat was very like vintage looking. It hadn't actually been modernised since the 80s, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then these are the most successful images, and with these I then edited them in the style of Hopper, so it looks almost like acrylic artwork. And what I did was blur the colour into the black and white. I'm not too sure how well you can see it, but I don't really want to zoom you in because then you lose the full effect of the book. But yeah, half the image is in black and white, half of it is in colour. And then with these aren't really edits as such, more just like artwork experimentation. And what I did was just like expand the colour from the image onto the paper. Again, working with acrylic just as the artist did, but also focusing on the contrast between the colour and the black and white. And this transformation was to show how my mum used to go to like Scarborough on holiday, and then we've gone in the modern day, and the colour contrast is to show the difference between past and present. This was very weak. This is probably my weakest link to the whole project, but I did just like the images, so I wanted to put them in anyway. And then this is where the main bulk of my project kind of begins. So I looked at the artist George Tice. I don't know if you can see that up here. And he worked in black and white colour, no, not black and white colour, black and white photography, looking at places local to him, places significant, and seemingly kind of not pointless images, but like they're pretty mundane, they're pretty average until you do the research into why he took them, which is kind of what I was going for. So I then decided to visit the house that my mum had grown up in, and photograph her street on film. Again, I did vlog this, so you might have seen it, but I did this on a film camera using just a handheld disposable camera, which I actually thought worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. It was actually really surprising. I thought the quality of the pictures was going to be poor, but it was actually really quite good. So then these are them here just printed out. So again, I think I have vlogged these, but these are my 5 most successful images of her street. And then what I did was took the negatives and redeveloped them in the darkroom and put them into black and white. So I thought this was really successful, and this shows a skill that I hadn't used really before in my book. Just to prove that I can develop with negative imagery and work in the darkroom as a more like traditional form of photography, which I thought worked really well. And then as a literal transformation within my edits, I then used bleach to bring out parts of the image. So in this one we kind of just poured bleach all over it, and the part of the house, like the actual houses, you can't see them anymore, which I then thought worked really well in some later edits that I did. I also interviewed my mum before we started this project, and using the bleach I kind of like wrote the words that she'd said in the interview. So over here it says like my roots, which I thought worked quite well, and if you read it, it's like about how this is like a transformation from like her past to her present kind of thing. It is quite a tenuous link, but it's there. And then I did the same, but I did some bleach work onto the coloured images, so like the ones I had taken straight away. And I thought these actually worked a lot better because bleach kind of makes coloured images come out like reds and oranges, so it looks kind of like scary, but I actually really liked it. And then I looked at this is kind of in the wrong place, but I looked at the artist or the photographer Jerry Yulesman, I think you'd pronounce it, who worked with the idea of roots and kind of like surrealist photography, which I actually thought was really cool. And if my Photoshop skills were a little bit better, I think that he would have been something I'd been really interested in looking at more. And then I also, on the back of this, just had some text inspiration because I then worked into my black and white images with text, so just as a backup I thought I'll put some inspiration here as to why I've done that. And then I just wrote like the name of the street, the area of the country, things like that in just blocks in ink, which I actually thought worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. So yeah, these are photocopies of the original pictures with the bleach over the top and then text over the top, so I actually think that kind of worked. And then from here the project isn't quite done. I have a couple of more bits of printing to do, but I then did a photo shoot of my mum. She really didn't like having these taken, so we're just gonna move on, but I just needed these to back up my film photography because I didn't have any like actual digital copies, and it's really hard to edit on Photoshop when you only have a film copy of the image, so I needed the digital version too. And then I did some edits and I overlaid them, and I think these worked really well. I've got one more to stick in here, which I do actually have. I haven't printed it out yet. So this is like a modern day image of my mum with the old image of her house behind it, and then the bleach that we worked with earlier has like faded out a gap in the middle, and that is where the modern day picture is. It's complicated to explain. This one is the same, but that is a really old photo of my mum when she was about 8 years old, and that is kind of layered as well with the image of the house. So these look different and better in person. It's hard to like explain it, but the writing does explain it, so like an examiner would know. And then here, this is just the biggest one printed out. I think this is the most successful because the old image is in black and white and the modern day one is in colour, and again it's kind of like it's the bleached copy of the image, so I think that works nicely. I then did a photo shoot of trees just because I wanted to experiment with the idea of roots. So these pictures were taken in East Park in Hull, and I just wanted to make sure that I got an image of a tree like this one where I had the sky all around it and nothing else interfering. And the reason for that was because I wanted to produce this edit, which I think was one of the most successful that I did. So this is the house that my mum used to live in, and then this is the tree. Obviously I photoshopped this to death. Had so many different like layers and things on Photoshop open to make this work, and this was the most complicated thing I've ever done. And you're looking at it now, you're probably thinking that looks so straightforward, but honestly getting the angle of the house right with the tree was like nearly impossible. Yeah, I've just got like a transformation here as well between how it looked before I edited the edges of the image, because it didn't actually like look how I wanted it to until I did this. And then I've just left a gap here because I need to put an artist page here that I haven't printed out yet. And then here I have a photo shoot of London because I'm going to now link it back to the beginning of my project with the city transformations. And what I'm going to do is overlay the pictures of the house where my mum grew up with the city to represent like her modern life and how it has changed. This is a slight lie, like obviously my mum doesn't live in London now, but I wanted it to link back to the beginning of my project so that it didn't look completely disjointed. So yeah, I'm just going to use some of these images. I focus specifically on reflection photography to link with the idea of like looking back at the past, which I'm going to use when I layer the images together with the house. And I will show you my final pieces, guys. That will be coming in my weekly vlog on Saturday, but for now this is where my project ends, because from here the rest of the stuff I produce is going to be in the exam. So I just need to produce like a plan for the exam, and then I'm aiming to do 6 final pieces, so I will show you that. That is it basically up until this point. It's not the bulkiest of projects, like it's about, I think about 30 pages, and I've definitely done better. If you want to see an example of an A star book, definitely check out my video where I spoke about my coursework, because my coursework project was so much stronger than this. But hopefully with the final pieces this will combine together to be okay. Basically I think, don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure it's 40% my coursework book and 60% this book. But I think 25% of this is my final piece as well. So yeah, don't hold me to that though. I'm not 100% sure on how it works. I haven't done as much research as I probably should have done into the exam, but I just know that it's on Wednesday, so I will show you my final piece If you've enjoyed it, give it a huge thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here and you want to see more videos like this. I think I might post my media coursework as well because you guys really wanted to see that. So I think I might upload that possibly this week, maybe next week. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like, and I will see you on Tuesday. Bye!